Hello and welcome back to the DoneDeal YouTube channel. Today we're reviewing a very important electric car. It is the Opel Corsa-e and it is bright and orange, but it's also very important for the industry here in Ireland as Opel launched the Corsa in 1993 and it was very popular and it dramatically improved over the years. And it leads us to 2020 where they have decided to launch an electric version. So it's a normal, popular car with an electric engine. First things first, how much does it cost and what do you get for it? Well, prices start at about 27,000 euros. That includes your SEAI grant of 5,000 euros and your VRT rebate of up to 5,000 euros. And what do you get for that? Well, you get this exact car. This is the SE, it's the entry-level one, and it's riddled with spec and extras. You get lane assist, you get Apple CarPlay, you get emergency braking, just to name a few. These are all well and good, but if you're watching this, you're probably interested to know about the electric range, the batteries, and the motor behind it. Well, it's got a 50 kilowatt lithium-ion battery, which is good for a claimed 337 kilometers. Now, in reality, on a day like today, you might get 337, but in Ireland, in the winter, it's realistically going to be probably high 200s. But on the electric market, that's actually quite good. So let's check out the inside, and then we'll go for a spin. As you sit in to the Opel Corsa, well, it's very much like your ordinary Corsa in here. It's quite basic, to be fair. However, sometimes less can be a lot more. So there's a nice little spot to put your key, 2 drink holders here. You've got a large storage area here with a 12-volt socket and a USB point. You've got buttons for your air conditioning, so they haven't just put it all into the infotainment system that we are huge fans of. And again with volume, so they've actually got rid of most of the buttons on the infotainment system, but the volume button lives on and we love to see it. Other features is there is a rather weirdly shaped glove box that's decent size. There's door cards here. Now they're not carpeted, it is in that way kind of basic. But as I said, less can be more, and the seats are actually reasonably comfortable. They're very adaptive, and the steering wheel is also fully maneuverable, so you can get into that really comfortable position. Now, the infotainment system is pretty easy to use, and in fact, if you just want to use it in its bare minimum functions, you really can. It's got your radio, which obviously it's a radio. You can also connect Bluetooth. You've got navigation on the entry-level spec, which is really impressive. But beyond anything else, there is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And if you know how good this system is, then you know once it has that, it is good enough. Now also, there is a digital dash over here. The digital dash then, again, is very clear and very coherent. There's a big speedometer, which is nice and easy to see when you're driving. And then you can play around with all the different functions. So you can see, for example, your energy. You can see where the power, how much power you're using. Are you regenerating power? Then, of course, you can completely personalize it. You can put your navigation there. It's all very simple. And what I like about it is it can be a little bit technical, but you can also just reverse it back and have it in its bare basic form, just like an old-fashioned Opel Corsa. So the rear seats, there are some and they're good. No, jokes aside, they actually are pretty handy. There's these nice little tidy zips to get at the ISOFIX points if you need to put a baby chair in. In terms of space, despite being the electric version, it actually has the same amount of space as your normal Corsa. That doesn't mean it's huge, but it means that you can travel a certain amount of distance without any discomfort whatsoever. One little small thing is there's nowhere to hang your shirts up back here or to grab, which is a little bit disappointing as you might actually use this. But other than that, it's pretty much as good as you'd ever need back here. When it comes to boot space, the ordinary Corsa has a 309 litre boot, which is more than sufficient. However, this being the Corsa-e has been stripped back for electric motor reasons, and it's only 267 litres. Now that is still probably more than enough. One thing to note though is there's no spare wheel in here. There's also nowhere to store your charging cables. So they come in this nice and tidy, neat little bag. However, it will have to sit in the boot. In terms of features in here, again, it's quite plain Jane. It's very simple. There's a few tethering points, there's shopping hooks, and you can of course fold down those rear seats. So, what is the Corsa-e like to drive? Well, it's good news in that department. So obviously it's completely automatic, but there's actually a huge amount of driving aids in this car, and it's actually fascinating to think this is the SE and the amount of spec that it comes with. So as we mentioned, there's Apple CarPlay, but you also get lane assist as standard. Now the lane assist is very unintrusive as well, which I really like. Other little things you get as standard are parking sensors, which, believe it or not, a brand new Mercedes C-Class does not come with parking sensors as standard. So that is a blue tick for Opel. Now that electric motor, well, it's got 136 horsepower, 280 newton meters of torque, which is quite a lot. And when you put your foot down, there's plenty of pickup. Now recently we drove the Mini Cooper electric and the range is much smaller. However, it definitely felt much more like a hot hatch. And although this does have plenty of nip, it's not exactly fast. There are 3 different driving modes. Eco is obviously nice, it regeneratively brakes, particularly if you put it in the regenerative braking mode. And then you've got Sport, which just makes it a whole lot more sensitive when it comes to throttle response. As you drive this along, it really does feel just like any other car, and it kind of goes along with the theme that it's an electric car, but it is also ordinary looking and it drives just like a normal car. I actually think I could put my grandmother in here and she wouldn't even notice that it's electric. She might wonder where the rattle of her old Yaris engine is, but she wouldn't find it difficult whatsoever. In terms of steering, it's very light. It doesn't actually feel like you're that disconnected, but it is light. The suspension is ever so slightly different from your ordinary Corsa, and so they had to adapt it because the batteries and the motor weigh an extra 300 odd kilos, and so it would be very bumpy if they didn't. And actually, the wheels are a little bit further apart, but you don't really notice it. As you're driving along, like I said, it just feels like I'm in an ordinary Opel Corsa. Charge times. That is always the big question when it comes to electric cars. And now, where it is quite slow charging at home, on a DC fast charger, a 100 kilowatt charger, you can get 80% in just 30 minutes. At this point in any car review, we discuss 3 of our favourite and least favourite things about the car we're reviewing. So let's start with our least favourite. And number 1 is the fact that this car has just over 700 kilometres on it since new, and the rear lights have already begun to fog up. Number 2 is actually also in this rear section, and it's to do with this enormous load lip. And in fact, if you fold down those rear seats, there is quite a lump in the floor too. And number 3, and I'm not sure if this is because it's an absolutely gorgeous day here in Dublin, but I do find that I get a little bit of a holiday rental car vibe from this car. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a vibe that I definitely do get. It's not all bad. In fact, a lot of it is very good in the Corsa-e. One of my favourite things about it is this gear lever. It feels like you're flying a jet plane or something really cool. And it's just a nice little touch and makes it feel very premium. Number 2 is just how inconspicuous the Corsa-e is. Now, if you're looking at this one, you're probably thinking, inconspicuous, that thing's orange. But I mean in general, if you look at it, there's very little that suggests that it's electric. There's normal grills, there's just a few small E badges, and often I find with electric cars, things like a Leaf or a Zoe, people are like, oh, you drive an electric car, you think you're better than me. But the Corsa doesn't have that. It's just an ordinary car with an electric motor. And number 3 is that the speed limit signs come up here on the dash in front of you. Now, normally you get this in premium cars, but to have it in an Opel is 10 out of 10. Well, there you have it. That is DoneDeal's review of the Opel Corsa-e. It's the ordinary car with the electric motor, and it's definitely going to be a pivotal car in the future of the electric motor industry. We hope you've enjoyed our review. We hope you've learned something about the Corsa-e. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.